The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. It broke through Earth's most secure communication channels like they were made of paper. Every major military installation, space command center, and government facility received the same transmission simultaneously. The strange part wasn't just how it bypassed Earth's best defenses, it was what the message asked for. We seek the deadliest of Earth's warriors. Only they can save us. In the United Earth Defense Council's main chamber, 50 of humanity's top military and civilian leaders sat in uncomfortable silence. The holographic message floated in the center of the room, its alien text now translated into all major Earth languages. General Rogers, a man with more battle scars than hair, stood up first. "It's obviously a trap," he said, his voice rough from years of shouting orders in the Mars colonies. "Why would anyone specifically ask for our most dangerous soldiers?" "Because they're desperate." Commander Jack Stone spoke up from his seat near the back. Unlike the other high-ranking officers in their pressed uniforms, Stone wore simple tactical gear. His face, weathered by countless missions, showed no emotion as all eyes turned to him. "The message bypassed our best security," Stone continued, standing up slowly. "If they wanted to attack, they already could have. They're asking for killers, but they're being polite about it. That tells me something's hunting them." Admiral Lee tapped her fingers on the marble table. "Commander Stone, you're suggesting we send our best warriors into what could very well be a slaughter." "No," Stone replied, walking to the center of the room. He passed his hand through the holographic message, watching the alien symbols dance around his fingers. "I'm suggesting we send the right kind of killers, the ones who understand when not to pull the trigger." The room erupted in whispers. Stone had a reputation. 10 years ago, he'd ended the Jupiter station crisis without firing a single shot, by threatening to vent the entire station into space. The rebels surrendered, and not a single hostage died. Some called him a hero. Others called him a monster. Everyone agreed he was effective. "What exactly are you proposing, Commander?" The council president leaned forward, her cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on Stone. "A small team. 4 or 5 operators. Not just soldiers, but people who've seen the worst and still kept their humanity. The kind of people who know exactly how deadly they can be, and choose every day not to be." General Rogers snorted. "You're talking about putting Earth's reputation in the hands of people like me." Stone cut him off. "People who can do terrible things but understand the weight of those choices. That's what makes us deadly. Not our ability to kill, but our choice not to." The holographic message pulsed, as if emphasizing his words. The alien symbols spun faster, creating patterns that looked almost like falling tears. "I volunteer to lead the mission," Stone said, his voice steady. "I already have a list of candidates in mind. People whose records might make you uncomfortable, but whose judgment I trust with my life." The council president stood, her augmented eye glowing softly in the dim chamber. "This could be first contact, Commander, or it could be the first wave of an invasion. Why should we risk our most capable operators?" Stone smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It wasn't a pleasant smile, but it carried a weight of understanding that made several council members shift in their seats. "Because if it is first contact, we need people who understand the responsibility that comes with power. And if it is a trap," his smile faded, "then they're about to learn why humans are considered deadly even by their own kind." The chamber fell silent again. The message continued its silent dance in the air, waiting for humanity's deadliest to answer its call. After what felt like hours, the council president nodded. "You have 72 hours to assemble your team, Commander Stone. Choose wisely. The face of humanity you show to these aliens might be the only one they ever see." Stone turned and walked out of the chamber without another word. In his mind, he was already building his team. Not from the lists of decorated heroes or celebrated warriors, but from those who carried the weight of their deadly potential like a cross. Those who understood that being truly deadly meant knowing exactly when not to be. The distress signal continued to pulse, reaching across light years of space, waiting for Earth's deadliest to answer. Commander Stone sat in his dimly lit office, holographic files floating around him like ghostly butterflies. Each one contained the profile of a potential team member. He wasn't looking at their medal counts or their mission successes. He was looking at their failures, the moments that had changed them forever. The first file expanded before him, showing a man lying perfectly still in a field of purple grass on an alien world. Marcus Reed hadn't moved for 3 days straight during the Proxima Colony crisis, waiting for the perfect shot that would end the conflict with a single pull of the trigger. But when the moment came, he'd spotted a child in his scope and called off the entire mission. The target lived, but so did the child. Reed quit the military the next day. "Computer, send the call to Marcus Reed," Stone commanded. The response came almost immediately. "I'm not interested in another mission, Jack." Reed's voice was quiet but firm. "This one's different. They asked for the deadliest humans." A long pause. "Then you're calling the wrong person. I'm not a killer anymore." "That's exactly why I'm calling you first," Stone replied. "Pack your gear. You've got 48 hours. The line went dead, but Stone knew Reed would come. He always did when it really mattered. The second file showed a woman in a hazmat suit standing amid the wreckage of Lab Station 7. Anna West had developed the most lethal biological weapons humanity had ever seen, then spent the rest of her career creating their cures. She'd saved more lives than her weapons had ever threatened to take. "West," she answered on the first ring. "I need someone who understands the real meaning of deadly," Stone said. "You mean someone who knows how to stop it," she replied. "When do we leave?" The third file was the hardest to watch. Tom Baker, demolitions expert, stood in the ruins of what had once been his own mistake. He'd misjudged a charge and brought down half a civilian structure. Nobody died, but Baker had never forgiven himself. Now he built things instead of destroying them, except when destruction was the only way to save lives. "I don't do bombs anymore, Commander," Baker said when he answered. "No, you do precision. That's what I need." A heavy sigh came through the line. "Just tell me it's for the right reasons. Would I call you if it wasn't?" The last file showed Kate Miller in a field hospital during the Europa conflict. She'd been captured by enemy forces, but convinced them to let her treat their wounded too. By the time reinforcements arrived, she'd saved lives on both sides and negotiated a local ceasefire that eventually led to peace talks. "Commander," Miller answered, the sounds of a busy medical bay in the background. "I'm kind of in the middle of something. How'd you like to save an alien species?" The background noise stopped. "You're serious?" "They asked for Earth's deadliest. I'm building a team that understands what that really means." "When do you need me?" 24 hours later, they all stood in Launch Bay 7 of the Space Command Center. Reed with his long-range rifle that he hadn't touched in years. West carrying a case of analysis equipment instead of weapons. Baker studying the structural plans of their ship with a builder's eye. Miller doing final checks on her advanced medical kit. "This is your team of deadliest warriors?" General Rogers asked, looking unimpressed. "A sniper who won't shoot, a weapons designer who makes cures, a demolitions expert afraid of his own explosives, and a combat medic who treats the enemy." Stone checked his own simple gear. No heavy weapons, just tools and emergency equipment. "No, sir. This is a team of people who know exactly how deadly they can be and choose every day to be something more. That's what makes them perfect for this mission. And if you're wrong, if you need actual killers out there." Stone looked at his team, each carrying the weight of their past decisions, each having learned the true meaning of being deadly. Then whoever sent that signal is about to learn that mercy can be deadlier than malice. The launch countdown began, and humanity's deadliest team prepared to answer the call that had crossed the stars to find them. The human ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a flash of blue light. Before them floated something that made even Reed lower his datapad in awe. The alien vessel was enormous. easily 20 times the size of Earth's largest space carrier. It looked like a giant silver leaf floating in space, its surface rippling with patterns of soft light. "No weapons," Baker said, checking the scans. "At least none that I recognize. But look at the hull. It's alive somehow, growing and repairing itself." "Life signs?" Stone asked from the command chair. Miller studied her medical readouts. "Thousands, but they're different, like they're all connected somehow. Never seen anything like it." A gentle voice filled their ship's command center, speaking perfect English with an oddly musical tone. "Defenders of Earth, we welcome you. Please dock at the indicated port. We apologize for any distress our urgent message may have caused." Stone looked at his team. Each nodded in turn. They'd trained for first contact scenarios, but this felt different. The alien ship wasn't trying to be threatening. If anything, it seemed to be trying to appear as harmless as possible. Approaching docking port, Reed reported from the pilot's seat. His sniper's eyes caught every detail of the massive ship. No signs of damage or combat. Whatever they're running from isn't here yet. The docking procedure was surprisingly smooth. The alien ship's port opened like a flower blooming, guiding their vessel in with careful precision. When they stepped out of their airlock, they found themselves in a corridor that looked more like a forest than a spaceship. The walls were covered in living material that glowed with soft blue light, and the air smelled like spring rain. "Fascinating," West muttered, taking readings with her handheld scanner. "The entire ship is one interconnected organism. It's not just alive. It's conscious." 3 figures approached through the organic corridor. They were tall and slender, with silvery skin that rippled like the surface of their ship. Their large eyes were completely golden, without pupils, and they moved with a grace that made them seem almost weightless. "I am Guide," the central figure spoke, its voice the same one they'd heard earlier. "These are Healer and Builder. We are Arcturians, and we thank you for answering our call." Stone stepped forward, keeping his hands visible and empty. "I'm Commander Stone. This is my team. Reed, West, Miller, and Baker. We came to help, but we need to understand what we're facing." The 3 Arcturians exchanged glances, and a wave of color passed through their skin, from silver to deep blue and back again. "We are a peaceful species," Guide explained. "All of our technology, our ships, even our cities, are grown rather than built. We heal, we create, we explore, but we never learn to fight." "And now something's hunting you," Baker said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." Healer stepped forward, its golden eyes reflecting the corridor's soft light. "They came from the void between galaxies. We call them the Void Swarm. They don't just kill. They consume consciousness itself. Memories, thoughts, dreams, all become part of their hive mind. That's why you called for Earth's Deadliest," Miller realized. "You needed people who understand combat." "No," Builder spoke for the first time, its voice deeper than the others. "We called for Earth's Deadliest because you are the only species we know of where predators evolved into protectors, where those with the power to destroy chose instead to defend." Stone felt the weight of those golden eyes studying his team. "How many of your people have they taken?" "Thousands," Guide answered, its skin rippling with patterns of grief. "They are held in hive clusters throughout this sector, still alive, still conscious, but—" It trailed off. "But being fed upon," West finished grimly. "Their consciousness slowly being absorbed into the swarm." A distant alarm sounded, its tone like sad music. The Arcturian skin rippled with patterns of fear. "They're coming," Healer whispered. "The Void Swarm has found us again." Stone looked at his team, the deadliest humans who had learned to heal instead of harm. Now they would need both sets of skills. "Show us everything you know about them," he said. "It's time to prove why they were right to call us." The Arcturian ship's control center was a dome of living crystal, showing the space around them in perfect clarity. Through this organic viewport, Stone's team got their first look at the void swarm. Dark shapes moved through space like living shadows, each one as big as their human ship. But these weren't ships, they were creatures. How do they survive in space? West asked, her scanner working overtime to analyze the approaching threats. They don't exist fully in our reality, Guide explained, touching a living console that pulsed with light. They phase between dimensions, making them almost impossible to hit with conventional weapons. Reed watched the shadows move with a sniper's precision. They're forming a pattern. Surrounding us. Not surrounding, Baker corrected, studying their movement. Hurting. They're pushing us toward something. A massive shape emerged from the darkness of space. Unlike the smaller creatures, this one was impossibly huge, like a mountain of living darkness. As it drew closer, they could see thousands of points of light trapped within its semi-transparent form. The lights, Miller whispered, her medical training helping her understand first. They're people, aren't they? Conscious minds. Healer's skin rippled with patterns of sorrow. Yes, that is a hive cluster. Each light is one of our people, their consciousness being slowly consumed. Stone stepped closer to the living viewport. You said they use victims' memories against others. How? Before Guide could answer, the ship shuddered. A voice filled their minds, not speaking, but pushing images and feelings directly into their thoughts. Stone saw his worst memories begin to surface. The missions gone wrong, the lives he couldn't save, every moment of doubt and fear. They're in our heads. Baker grabbed his temples, fighting against the invasion. But Reeb started laughing. Everyone turned to look at him, surprised. You don't get it, do you? He said to the air around them. We're human. Our worst memories. We live with them every day. They made us who we are. The mental pressure increased. More memories surfaced, not just their failures now, but their kills, their violence, every dark moment of their lives. West straightened up, understanding dawning on her face. That's why they wanted the deadliest humans. Not for our capacity for violence, but for our ability to carry it, Stone finished. To face it, to learn from it. The team stood together as the mental assault continued. Miller thought of every patient she couldn't save, using the memories to fuel her determination to save more. Baker recalled every miscalculation, letting them remind him why precision mattered. West remembered her weapon's potential for destruction, strengthening her resolve to use her knowledge for protection instead. Through the viewport, they watched as more void swarm creatures emerged from the darkness. Dozens, then hundreds. There are too many, Builder said, its voice heavy with defeat. Even if you resist their mental attacks, they will overwhelm us physically. Stone smiled, and there was something in that smile that made even the Arcturians pause. No, now we know what we're really fighting. This isn't about killing or destroying. It's about saving people. He turned to his team. Reed, you've got the best mental barriers. I need you coordinating our defense from the command center. West, work with Builder. Find a way to disrupt their dimensional phasing. Baker, those creatures have a pattern to their movement. Find it. Miller, see if you can help any of the consciousness still trapped in that hive cluster. And you? Guide asked. Stone watched the swarm approach, his mind clear despite their continued assault. I'm going to teach them why humans are considered the deadliest species in the galaxy. Not because we kill, but because we never, ever give up on saving lives, Miller finished. The void swarm pressed closer, but they didn't find the fear they expected. Instead, they found Earth's deadliest warriors ready to show them what that title really meant. They're using a hive pattern. Reed's voice came through the ship's living communication system. From his position in the command center, he could track every movement of the void swarm, like angry bees protecting their nest. But bees don't think. They react. Stone moved through the organic corridors of the Arcturian ship, Builder guiding him to the defense systems. How do we use that? We make them react exactly how we want them to, Reed replied. His sniper's mind was mapping every pattern, every response. West, how's that disruption coming? In another section of the ship, West worked with a team of Arcturian scientists. Their living technology was incredible, more advanced than anything on Earth, but it had never been used as a weapon before. The void swarm phases between dimensions to avoid damage, she explained, hands moving across living control panels. But they have to become solid to attack. That's our window. Window for what? Baker asked through the comm. He was studying the structural layout of space around them, seeing patterns others missed. Even if we can hit them, we don't have weapons that can hurt them. We don't need weapons, Miller's voice joined in. She was in the medical bay, working with Healer. We need to save the consciousness they've stolen. Look at the scans. The swarm is like one big nervous system, all connected. Stone smiled as the plan came together in his mind. If it's all connected, then we can use that against them, West finished. Commander, I think I have something. The Arcturians' healing technology. We can modify it. Instead of healing physical wounds, it could heal mental ones. Miller caught on quickly. Break the connection between the swarm and their victims. But we have to get close, Baker pointed out. Really close. And they're not going to just let us walk up to that hive cluster. Reed's voice carried a hint of his old sniper's confidence. They will if we give them no choice. Commander, remember the Jupiter station. When we made them think they had us trapped, Stone nodded. But this time, we're actually going to be trapped, Baker finished. On purpose. The plan came together quickly. West and the Arcturian scientists modified their healing technology into something new. A pulse that could disrupt the mental connections the void swarm used to control their victims. Baker identified the structural weak points in the swarm's formation, places where their pattern would force them to respond in predictable ways. They're going to hit us with everything they've got, Reed warned as they moved into position. Every bad memory, every dark thought. Good, Miller replied, checking her modified medical equipment. Let them see exactly what humans can carry. The void swarm responded exactly as Reed predicted. As the Arcturian ship moved into position, the dark shapes closed in, their mental assault intensifying. But this time, the humans were ready. Now, Stone commanded. West activated her modified healing pulse, just as Baker triggered a series of spatial charges that forced the swarm to phase into solid form. The pulse hit them at their most vulnerable moment, and the effect was immediate. Points of light began breaking free from the hive cluster, consciousness escaping back to their bodies. The swarm creatures writhed in space, their mental network disrupted by the pulse of healing energy. It's working, Miller called out, monitoring the life signs of the rescued Arcturians. Their minds are returning to their bodies. But the swarm wasn't finished. The massive hive cluster began to move, its dark mass shifting like a storm cloud. The smaller creatures formed new patterns, adapting to the human strategy. They're learning, Reed warned, changing their tactics. Stone watched through the living viewport as the battle evolved. So are we. West, recalibrate that pulse. Baker, I need new disruption points. Miller, get ready for more survivors. Reed, already calculating new patterns, Commander. The hunt had begun in earnest now. But the void swarm was learning a harsh lesson. They had wanted Earth's deadliest warriors, but deadly didn't mean what they thought it meant. It meant being clever enough to turn healing into a weapon. It meant using the enemy's own patterns against them. It meant saving lives instead of taking them. And most importantly, it meant never, ever giving up. The battle had been raging for hours. The Arcturian ship's living walls pulsed with exhaustion, its energy nearly drained from maintaining the modified healing pulses. In the command center, Reed hadn't moved from his observation post, his eyes tracking every shift in the void swarm's patterns. Commander, he called out suddenly, I'm seeing something new. The hive cluster. It's not just storing consciousness. It's protecting something. Stone moved to the viewport, studying the massive dark shape, The rescue operation had freed hundreds of trapped minds, but the hive cluster wasn't retreating. If anything, it was becoming more aggressive. "West," he called through the comm. "What are your scanners showing?" In the science bay, West looked up from her readings. "There's a core, deep inside the cluster. It's different from the rest. More organized, more conscious. A central mind," Baker added from his station. "That's why they keep attacking even though they're losing. They're not protecting their victims anymore. They're protecting their brain." Miller's voice came through, tired but determined. "The freed Arcturians are starting to wake up. They're saying something about the core, about how it feeds on fear, on violence, on darkness." Stone watched another wave of void swarm creatures approach. Each attack had been stronger than the last, but also more desperate, more predictable. "They don't understand us," he said slowly. "They feed on darkness, but they don't understand what darkness teaches us." "Sir," Reed questioned, "every time they attack our minds, they look for our worst memories, our violence, our capacity for destruction." Stone's voice grew stronger. "But they don't see what those memories really mean, what they taught us." Understanding dawned on West's face. "They see our capacity for violence, but not our choice to be better," Miller finished. Baker laughed suddenly. "They wanted Earth's deadliest warriors. Let's show them what that really means." Stone's plan was either brilliant or insane, probably both. The team worked quickly, modifying West's healing pulse one final time. But instead of trying to break the swarm's mental connection, they were going to use it. "Ready," West reported. The living technology hummed around them, prepared for one final effort. "Everyone, lower your mental defenses," Stone commanded. "Let them in. Let them see everything." The void swarm struck immediately, pouring into their minds with overwhelming force. But this time, the humans didn't fight back. They opened themselves completely, showing the swarm exactly what they wanted to see. They showed them Reed's perfect kill shots, and the moments he chose not to take them. They showed them West's deadly weapons, and her lifetime of creating cures. They showed them Baker's explosives, and the things he built instead. They showed them Miller's battlefield decisions, and every life she'd saved on both sides. They showed them Stone's capacity for violence, and his constant choice to find another way. The swarm's mental assault faltered. For the first time, they faced something they couldn't understand. Beings who knew exactly how deadly they could be, and chose something else. "Now," Stone commanded. West activated the modified pulse. But this time, instead of breaking connections, it strengthened them, forced the swarm to see, to understand. The hive cluster writhed in space as new concepts flooded through its network. Choice, restraint, growth, hope. The massive core at the center of the cluster began to pulse with new colors, not just darkness now but light. Understanding spread through the hive mind like a wave, changing everything it touched. "Their pattern is breaking down," Reed reported, watching the smaller creatures move erratically. "They're changing." Through the viewport, they watched as the void swarm began to transform. The darkness remained, but now it was shot through with streams of light. The creatures stopped their attack, hanging in space like stars in a new constellation. "They understand now," Miller said softly. "Being deadly isn't about having the power to destroy. It's about having the wisdom to choose not to." Stone finished. "Even when you could. Especially when you could." The core pulsed one final time, and for the first time since the battle began, they felt something new from the hive mind. Not hunger, not fear, not violence. Understanding. 3 days after the transformation of the void swarm, the Arcturian ship hummed with new energy. The rescued victims were recovering in the medical bay, their consciousness whole and unharmed. But the biggest change was in space around them, where the swarm creatures now moved in patterns of both shadow and light. "They're beautiful now, in their own way," Miller said, watching through the living viewport. She had spent the last days helping the rescued Arcturians, amazed at their resilience. They're balanced, Reed corrected. He hadn't touched his rifle since the battle ended. Like we are, capable of darkness, but choosing light. In the ship's main gathering space, a chamber that looked like a forest made of crystal, Stone met with Guide and the newly transformed core of the Void Swarm. The core had taken a physical form, a shifting pattern of darkness and light that pulsed gently as it communicated. We never understood before. The core spoke directly into their minds, but gently now without force. We saw only the darkness in consciousness, the violence, the fear. We fed on it, thinking it was strength. Those things are part of strength, Stone replied, but only a part. The real strength is in what you choose to do with them. West entered the chamber, her scanner showing remarkable readings. The swarm's entire biology has changed. They still feed on consciousness, but now they process both light and dark emotions. They're in perfect balance. Like Earth's deadliest warriors, Guide said, its skin rippling with patterns of joy and understanding. Now we truly understand why we called for you, not for your capacity for violence, but for your mastery over it. Baker joined them, looking up at the living architecture of the ship. You know what's funny? When we got that distress call, everyone thought it was a trap. Turned out to be more of a lesson. A lesson for everyone, the core agreed. Its form shifted, showing images of stars and galaxies. We will travel now, seek out others of our kind. Teach them what we have learned from humans. That true deadliness lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to choose creation instead. Guide turned to Stone and his team. The Council of Arcturian Worlds has a request. We would like to establish formal relations with Earth, not just for trade or cultural exchange, but for protection. Protection. Reed raised an eyebrow. You've got the transformed swarm on your side now. They're more powerful than we could ever be. Power is not what we seek, Guide explained. We seek understanding. Your people have mastered something far more valuable than weapons or defenses. You've mastered the balance between peace and war, between violence and mercy. Stone looked at his team. The deadliest humans who had proved their deadliness through wisdom rather than warfare. We'll take your request back to Earth. But I think I can guess what they'll say. The core pulsed with new colors. The galaxy is changing. More species will learn what we have learned, that those who master themselves are the truly deadly ones. And we'll be ready, Miller said, not to fight them, but to teach them, West finished. As they prepared to return to Earth, Stone took one last look at the transformed swarm creatures dancing through space. They had come looking for humanity's darkness, only to find its light. They had sought Earth's deadliest warriors, only to discover that true deadliness lay not in the ability to end life, but in the choice to protect it. The Arcturian ship's living walls hummed with energy as they set course for Earth. In the space around them, the Void Swarm moved in new patterns, their darkness now forever touched by light. They had all learned the same lesson, that the deadliest force in the universe wasn't hatred or fear or violence. It was wisdom. And as their ship jumped to faster than light speed, carrying them home, Stone knew that they had answered the call exactly as they should have. Not as killers, not as warriors, but as humans who had learned to be both deadly and wise. The deadliest humans had answered the call for rescue, and they had rescued far more than they ever expected.